The Azure Pearl sat anchored in Monaco's Port Hercules like a crown jewel, its white hull reflecting afternoon sun in blinding sheets. On the main deck, champagne pyramids sparkled beneath silk canopies. Men in tailored suits and women in designer dresses mingled, their laughter carrying across the water like distant bells. Vivienne Rousseau stood near the gangway, ivory blazer crisp, posture perfect. She'd orchestrated every detail of this preview event. Her eyes scanned the crowd with practiced precision, ensuring everything remained flawless. Then she saw him, a black man in a grey hoodie and jeans ascending the guest ramp, sneakers scuffing against polished teak. No suit, no tie, no invitation visible in his hands. Vivienne's smile evaporated. She moved quickly, heels clicking against the deck. "Excuse me." Her voice cut through the ambient music. "This is a private event." Marcus Hale looked up, confusion flickering across his face. "I'm here to see the yacht. My company—" "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave." Vivienne positioned herself between Marcus and the main deck, arms crossed. Her voice carried now, performative. "This event is for invited guests only." Conversations around them stuttered to silence. Heads turned. A woman in blush pink whispered behind her champagne flute. A man in cobalt blue smirked into his drink. Marcus felt the weight of their stares pressing against his chest. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Vivienne said, louder still, "is you thinking you belong here. If you're looking for work, the staff entrance is around back." She gestured dismissively toward the marina's service area. The surrounding guests watched with mixture of discomfort and amusement. Some looked away. Others leaned closer, eager for drama. Marcus stood still, studying her face. He could pull out his phone right now, show her the contract, watch her expression crumble. But something in her smug certainty, that absolute conviction she was right, made him pause. She'd already decided who he was based on his clothes and skin. No amount of proof would change what lived inside her. "Understood," he said quietly. He turned and walked back down the ramp, each step measured and deliberate. Behind him, Vivienne exhaled victoriously. "You have to protect the brand," she said to a nearby guest, loud enough for others to hear. A few people applauded. She basked in their approval, already mentally drafting the story she'd tell Gregory about handling the situation. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. She ignored it. Turning back to her guests with a practiced smile, the phone kept buzzing. 6 hours earlier, Marcus Hale woke in a modest boutique hotel overlooking the marina. No penthouse suite. No entourage, just a single room with clean lines, strong coffee, and a view of the Mediterranean turning gold in early light. He'd flown in alone the night before, declining his assistant's offer to arrange a car service, security detail, or media presence. At 38, Marcus had learned that true wealth meant choosing simplicity over spectacle. Haletech's journey from dorm room startup to global empire had made him a billionaire 3 times over. His company's AI platforms powered everything from medical diagnostics to climate research. Forbes called him a visionary. Ted wanted him on stage. But today wasn't about business accolades. Today was personal. The Azure Pearl booking represented something deeper than a corporate retreat. Marcus wanted his 200 employees, many from backgrounds like his, to experience luxury without judgment, to walk spaces that historically excluded them, to simply exist in elegance without proving anything. He dressed in his usual style, grey hoodie, dark jeans, clean sneakers. Comfort over performance. His assistant had texted twice, "Car ready. Should I send the Tom Ford suit?" He'd ignored both messages. Success to Marcus meant freedom from costume. Meanwhile, aboard the Azure Pearl, Vivienne adjusted her ivory blazer in the staff cabin mirror. 5 years she'd worked to reach head hostess. 5 years of perfecting her smile, memorizing wine regions, learning which guests wanted attention and which wanted invisibility. This preview event was her final test before promotion to events director. Gregory had been clear. Impress the investors today and the position is yours. She'd prepared obsessively. Guest list memorized. Champagne chilled to exactly 45 degrees. White orchids arranged by height. Every detail choreographed. Gregory had mentioned something about a major booking finalizing soon, some tech company's corporate retreat worth millions. But Vivian hadn't seen the contract, didn't know the client's name. Her job was the event in front of her, and she intended to execute it flawlessly. She checked her reflection one final time, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her blazer. Perfection was her currency. Today she'd spend it all. Marcus left his hotel at noon, deciding to walk the marina before the preview event began. He wanted to see the Azure Pearl alone, away from crowds, to ensure it matched the experience he envisioned for his team. The yacht's reputation preceded it. Exclusive, elegant, impeccable. Exactly what his employees deserved. He didn't wear the visitor badge his assistant had prepared. Didn't carry the contract documents. Didn't think he'd need them. That assumption would cost him everything. Marcus arrived at the marina's guest entrance at 12:47 p.m., 17 minutes before the preview event officially began. The gangway stood open, welcoming. He ascended slowly, admiring the craftsmanship. Teak deck polished to mirror finish, brass railings warm under Mediterranean sun, the faint scent of salt and luxury. Vivian spotted him before he reached the main deck. Wrong clothes, wrong posture, wrong everything. Her instincts screamed threat to the aesthetic. She moved quickly, intercepting him near the champagne station. "Excuse me, do you have an invitation?" Her smile was professional, but her eyes performed a rapid assessment that found him lacking. Marcus looked up, surprised by the confrontation. "I'm here to see the yacht. My company has a booking. Sir, this is an exclusive preview event." Vivian positioned herself directly in his path, blocking his view of the main deck. "If you're with the catering staff, you'll need to use the service entrance. I'm not staff. I'm Marcus Hale, HaleTech's CEO. We have a $10 million, sir." Her voice rose, sharp enough to cut through nearby conversations. "I'm going to need you to leave before I call security." The words hung in the air like smoke. Around them, conversations died. A man in a cobalt blue suit turned fully. Drink paused halfway to his lips. A woman in blush pink nudged her companion, eyebrows raised. Marcus felt the familiar weight settling on his shoulders, the exhaustion of being presumed guilty of not belonging. "There's been a misunderstanding. If you check with your manager, I am the head hostess," Vivian interrupted, her voice now loud enough for everyone within 20 feet to hear clearly. "And I'm telling you to leave. This yacht serves a certain caliber of clientele. I'm sure you understand." The phrase landed like a slap. Certain caliber. The surrounding guests shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with open curiosity, waiting to see how the scene would unfold. Marcus could feel his phone in his pocket, heavy with proof. The signed contract. The wire transfer confirmation. His company's logo that would prove everything in seconds. But he didn't reach for it, because he understood something Vivian didn't. No amount of proof changes what people decide about you in the first 3 seconds. She'd looked at his skin and his hoodie and made her judgment. Documents wouldn't rewrite that script. They'd only make her defensive, force her to justify the unjustifiable. "Understood," Marcus said quietly. His voice carried none of the anger burning in his chest. "I'll leave." Vivian's posture relaxed, victorious. "Thank you for your cooperation." Marcus walked back down the gangway, each step deliberate and controlled. Behind him, he heard Vivian's voice rise again, theatrical now. "Sometimes you have to protect the brand, you know." "Standards exist for a reason." Scattered applause followed. A few guests laughed. The nervous laughter of people relieved the uncomfortable moment had passed. Marcus reached the dock and kept walking, his mind already 3 moves ahead. Behind him, Vivian's phone began buzzing insistently in her pocket. Marcus sat on a weathered bench at the marina's edge, staring at sailboats bobbing in their slips. His chest felt tight, not with rage, but with a profound, bone-deep exhaustion he'd been carrying for 38 years. How many times? How many hotel lobbies, restaurants, offices, yachts? How many places where his clothes or his face became disqualifying factors before his name ever entered the conversation? He thought of his mother's kitchen in Atlanta, 26 years ago. He'd come home from school crying after a teacher accused him of cheating on a math test. 12-year-old Marcus had scored perfectly, and the teacher couldn't believe a black kid from his neighborhood could solve advanced equations. His mother had held his face in her hands, her eyes fierce and sad at once. "Baby, you're going to have to work twice as hard for half the respect. That's not fair. That's not right. But that's real. He was 12 then. He's 38 now. He'd built $1 billion company, changed industries, employed thousands. And still a gray hoodie erased everything. The math hadn't changed. His phone buzzed. Text from his CFO, Diane. Final wire transfer confirmed. $10 to Azure Pearl cleared. You on board yet? Can't wait to see photos. Marcus stared at the message. Then at the yacht in the distance, gleaming white and untouchable. The Azure Pearl, his booking, her yacht. A slow, cold smile crossed his face. He could let it go. Rise above. Turn the other cheek. Forgive and forget. But rising above had never changed anything. It just made space for the next humiliation, the next assumption, the next person like Vivian who never faced consequences for their contempt. Maybe it was time they fell instead. Marcus opened his email app, found the booking manager's contact, Gregory Ashford, Azure Pearl Events Director. His fingers moved steadily across the screen, composing 4 sentences that would detonate Vivian's world. Due to hostile and discriminatory treatment by your head hostess, Hailtech withdraws its corporate booking effective immediately. Our $10 million contract is cancelled. Please process the refund. Marcus Hale, CEO, he read it twice, hit send. Watched the message disappear into the digital void. Then he stood, pocketed his phone, and walked away from the marina without looking back. Behind him, on the Azure Pearl's main deck, Vivian's phone finally stopped buzzing. Gregory was already running. Flashback. 19 years earlier. Marcus sat in a glass-walled venture capital office in Palo Alto, worn backpack at his feet, laptop with a cracked screen balanced on his knees. He'd taken a Greyhound bus from Atlanta to pitch his idea. An AI platform that could democratize medical diagnostics in underserved communities. 3 investors sat across from him, white men in tailored suits, barely looking up from their phones as he talked. Marcus explained the algorithms, the potential market, the lives that could be saved. His voice cracked with passion and caffeine and desperation. When he finished, the silence stretched like taffy. Finally, the lead investor glanced at Marcus's torn jeans and scuffed sneakers. "This is interesting, but come back when you look serious about business. No questions about the technology, no interest in the mission, just a dismissal wrapped in advice." Marcus left empty-handed, $200 in his bank account, no return bus ticket purchased yet. But he didn't quit. He coded through nights in his dorm room. Ate ramen, ignored dating, ignored sleep, built Hailtech user by user, bootstrapped with freelance work, proving the model in free clinics where nobody else bothered to look. 5 years later, those same investors called, begged for a meeting, offered money he no longer needed. Marcus took the meeting, wore the same torn jeans, now vintage by choice rather than necessity. Listened to their pitch, said no. That memory forged his philosophy. Respect isn't given, it's taken. And sometimes taking it means making people face the cost of their assumptions. Back aboard the Azure Pearl, Gregory Ashford's face had gone from tan to gray. His phone screen illuminated his horror as he reread the email. hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. Contract cancelled. $10 million withdrawn. He looked up, scanning the deck with desperate eyes, finding Vivian near the champagne fountain, laughing with a guest. "Vivian!" His voice cracked across the deck like thunder. She turned, smile faltering at his expression. Gregory grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the staff cabin, away from curious guests. "Did you just remove someone from the yacht?" His voice shook with barely controlled fury. Vivian blinked, confused by the intensity. "Yes, some guy who wandered onto the deck. I handled it professionally. He clearly didn't belong." "Describe him." "What?" "Describe him." Vivian flinched. Black man. Late 30s. Gray hoodie, jeans. No invitation. He tried to claim he had a booking but couldn't produce any proof. I protected the event's integrity. The champagne glass slipped from Gregory's hand, exploding against the teak deck in a spray of crystal and wine. "That," he whispered, "was Marcus Hale." Vivian's smile froze on her face, a mask that no longer fit. "Who?" Gregory thrust his phone at her, hands trembling. "The $10 million booking. Our entire quarter's revenue. The contract that kept this yacht operational. He just cancelled." Vivian's world tilted sideways. The deck seemed to shift beneath her feet, though the yacht sat perfectly still in calm water. "Cancelled? No, there must be a mistake. I can explain." Gregory's laugh was sharp and hollow. "Explain?" "Explain what?" "That you expelled our biggest client because he wore a hoodie." He pulled up the email on his phone, forcing her to read it. The words glowed accusingly. "Due to hostile and discriminatory treatment by your head hostess," Vivian's chest constricted. She scrolled up frantically, finding Haletech's website still open in Gregory's browser. Marcus Hale's photo stared back at her. Same face, same calm eyes, same gray hoodie and several candid shots. The press called him Tech's most authentic billionaire for refusing to play dress-up for investors. She'd expelled a man worth $3.2 billion for not wearing a gi suit. "I didn't know," she whispered. "He didn't say, he didn't prove, he shouldn't have to prove anything." Gregory's voice rose to a shout. Around them, the preview event continued, guests laughing in blissful ignorance. "Do you understand what you've done? That booking was 60% of our annual revenue. Without it, we fold. The yacht gets sold. Everyone loses their jobs. All because you decided someone didn't look rich enough." Vivian's hands shook as reality crashed over her in waves. She saw it all now. The house of cards she'd toppled with her assumptions. The staff who'd lose employment. The yacht's owners who'd lose their investment. Her career cremated in a single moment of prejudice. "I'll apologize," she said desperately. "I'll call him. I'll make this right. I'll grovel if I have to." Gregory's expression was pitiless. "You think Marcus Hale needs your apology? Men like him don't waste time on people like you. He's already moved on. He probably has 3 other yachts offering him better deals while we stand here." But Vivian was already pulling out her phone, fingers trembling as she searched the booking system for Marcus's contact. She found his number. Typed with shaking hands, "Mr. Hale, I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. There was a terrible mistake. Please allow me to make this right. We would be honored to host Haletech's event. I take full responsibility." She hit send. Watched the screen like it held her entire future. 30 seconds passed. The message showed delivered 1 minute. Read 2 minutes. No reply 3 minutes, nothing. The silence was deafening. Louder than any angry response, more devastating than any curse. He'd read her words and decided she wasn't worth the energy it took to respond. Vivian stared at the screen until it blurred with tears. Behind her, Gregory was already on the phone with the yacht's owners, his voice heavy with defeat. "We have a situation. The Haletech contract just cancelled. Yes, all of it. We need to discuss next steps." Vivian looked up at the champagne pyramid she'd arranged so carefully. The white orchids she'd measured by height. The perfection she'd curated. It all meant nothing now. She'd built her career on keeping the wrong people out. She never considered she might be one of them. The Azure Pearl's main office felt like a tomb. Gregory sat behind his desk, head in his hands, while Vivian stood by the window watching guests depart from the preview event. They left smiling, unaware the yacht they just admired was drowning. "The owners want answers," Gregory said flatly. "They're flying in tomorrow morning." Vivian turned, desperation sharpening her voice. "Let me fix this. Give me his hotel. I'll go there. Face to face, I can make him understand." "Understand what?" Gregory looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "That you're sorry you got caught? That you didn't mean to be discriminatory. You just acted discriminatory." The words hit like open-handed slaps. Vivian flinched but pressed forward. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But people deserve second chances. If I can just talk to him—" "You don't get it." Gregory's voice dropped to something worse than anger, pity. "Marcus Hale doesn't need our second chances. He has options. We have consequences." Vivian's phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. "Guests asking about the Hale Tech event next month. What should I tell them?" Her hands trembled as she typed back, "Event cancelled." No further details. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Her assistant was processing, probably confused. Another text arrived. "Is everything okay?" Vivian didn't respond. Nothing was okay. Nothing would be okay again. Gregory stood, straightening his tie with mechanical precision. "I'm suspending you pending investigation. Leave your access badge on the desk. Security will escort you out." "Gregory, please, leave the badge, Vivian." She removed it slowly, the lanyard catching on her collar. The plastic card landed on his desk with a hollow click, the sound of a door closing forever. "I worked 5 years for this," she whispered, "and destroyed it in 5 minutes." Gregory turned away, unable to look at her. Security's waiting. Vivian walked through the yacht's corridors one final time, past the champagne fountain she'd arranged, past the white orchids she'd measured. Everything perfect, everything meaningless. The security guard, kind old Thomas, who'd always smiled at her, kept his eyes forward as he escorted her down the gangway. He didn't smile now. At the dock, Vivian looked back at the Azure Pearl. The yacht gleamed in late afternoon sun, beautiful and indifferent to her ruin. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus's message thread still showing read with no response. The silence felt like drowning. That evening, Vivian sat alone in her apartment, curtains drawn against Monaco's golden hour. Her phone lay face up on the coffee table, mocking her with its silence. She'd refreshed Marcus's message thread 20 times. Nothing. The industry moved fast. By sunset, 3 colleagues had texted carefully neutral questions. "Heard there was an incident? You okay?" Translation: everyone knew. Her career was being discussed in group chats and executive lounges across the Mediterranean. Her mother called from Paris. Vivian let it go to voicemail. How could she explain this? "I expelled a billionaire because I thought he looked poor." The sentence felt absurd even in her head. She opened her laptop, Googling Marcus Hale for the first time. The results flooded her screen: articles, interviews, TED Talks. Forbes profile: the hoodie billionaire who refuses to play dress-up. Bloomberg feature: Marcus Hale's mission, making luxury accessible. There was even a viral video from 3 years ago. Marcus at a tech conference, stopped by security who didn't believe he was the keynote speaker. He'd smiled patiently, shown his ID, and later donated $2 million to unconscious bias training programs. He'd been here before. This was her teaching moment, not his learning curve. Vivian's hands shook as she read the comments under articles about him. He's changing the game. Finally, someone who represents us. My hero. And she'd treated him like trash. Her phone buzzed. Not Marcus, Gregory. The message was brief. Owners are meeting with legal tomorrow. Prepare for termination. I'm sorry, Vivian. I really am. She stared at the words until they blurred. Termination, not suspension. Not probation. The end. Another buzz. An email from Azure Pearl's HR department. Please return all company property by 10 a.m. tomorrow. Final paycheck will be processed within 30 days. 30 days. She had rent due in 20. Vivian stood, pacing her apartment like a caged animal. There had to be a way to fix this. There had to be. She could write a public apology, go to the press, expose her own prejudice, show she'd learned. No, that would make it about her redemption, not his dignity. Another performance, another way of centering herself in his pain. She stopped pacing, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. For the first time in her life, Vivian understood what powerlessness felt like. The inability to fix things, the weight of consequences she couldn't charm or work her way out of. Marcus Hale had carried this feeling every day of his life. And she'd added to it. Her phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Vivienne Rousseau. A woman's voice, professional and cold, yes. This is Amanda Chen from Maritime Industry Review. We're running a story about discriminatory practices in luxury hospitality. Multiple sources say you expelled Marcus Hale from the Azure Pearl today. Would you like to comment? Vivian's blood turned to ice. The press, of course. This wasn't just her career ending. This was her name becoming a cautionary tale. I have no comment, she whispered. We publish tomorrow morning. Just wanted to give you a chance to share your side. The line went dead. Vivian dropped the phone, sank to her knees. And finally the tears came. Not pretty, camera-ready tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that shook her entire body. She'd destroyed everything. And the worst part? She deserved it. Morning arrived cruel and bright. Vivian woke on her couch, still in yesterday's ivory blazer. Now wrinkled beyond recognition. Her phone showed 43 notifications. She ignored them all. The Maritime Industry Review article was live. She didn't need to read it. Her inbox told the story through subject lines. Disappointed in you. Thought you were better than this. Don't contact me again. Professional connections severing themselves like ropes under pressure. She showered mechanically. Watching water circle the drain. Dressed in jeans and a simple blouse. No performance today, no costume. Just the person she'd been hiding under all that perfection. The walk to Azure Pearl felt like a funeral march. Thomas, the security guard, waited at the entrance, her boxed belongings already packed. He wouldn't meet her eyes as he handed over the box. Inside her nameplate, a photo of her and Gregory celebrating her promotion to head hostess. A coffee mug that said, Best Boss. The mug felt like mockery now. Thomas, she said quietly. I'm sorry. I know this affects you too. He nodded once, still not looking at her. My daughter's black, he said softly. She's in hospitality school. Wants to work on yachts someday. He finally looked up, his eyes tired and sad. I have to go home tonight and tell her what you did. Explain that she'll face people like you her whole career. The words landed heavier than any termination letter. Vivienne opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing she could say would matter. Thomas walked away. Vivian stood alone on the dock, holding her box of irrelevant trinkets. Her phone buzzed. Her mother again. This time she answered. Vivian, darling, I just read the most terrible article. Her mother's voice was tight with controlled panic. Tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't. It's true, Mama. Vivian's voice came out hollow. All of it. Silence stretched across the line. Then, how could you? We raised you better than this. I thought I was protecting the yacht's reputation. You were protecting your own prejudice. Her mother's disappointment was surgical. I'm ashamed, Vivian. Your father would be ashamed. The line went dead. Her mother had hung up. Not yelled. Not lectured. Just hung up. The silence worse than any tirade. Vivian sat on the same bench where Marcus had sat yesterday. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd taken his moment of humiliation and made it permanent in ways she was only beginning to understand. The box sat beside her. containing 5 years of work reduced to cardboard and memories. She thought about calling Marcus again, begging, pleading. But she finally understood. He didn't owe her forgiveness. He didn't owe her anything. Her guilt was hers to carry. A seagull cried overhead. The Mediterranean sparkled indifferently, and Vivienne Rousseau sat in the ruins of everything she'd built, finally understanding the weight of consequences. 3 days passed. Vivienne stopped checking her phone. The story had grown legs, picked up by major outlets, discussed on hospitality forums, dissected on social media. Her name trended for all the wrong reasons. Job applications sent to other yachts and hotels came back with polite rejections, or worse, no response at all. She was toxic now, untouchable. Her reputation preceded her like a warning sign. On the 4th morning, she sat in a small cafe far from the marina, nursing coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. A newspaper lay open in front of her, not the industry review, but a local paper with a small article buried on page 7. The headline, "Hailtech announces $5 million fund for hospitality bias training." Vivienne read with trembling hands. Marcus Hale had donated money to create programs teaching unconscious bias recognition in luxury service industries. The article quoted him. No one should have to prove their worth based on appearance. It's time the industry evolved. He turned her prejudice into progress, used his pain as fuel for change. While she sat drowning in self-pity, he was building solutions. The realization hit like cold water. She was still making it about herself. Her guilt, her shame, her destroyed career. Meanwhile, Marcus and people like him dealt with versions of this constantly, and somehow found energy to fix systems instead of wallowing. Vivienne closed the paper, looked around the cafe, saw a young black woman behind the counter, efficiently managing the morning rush. Vivienne watched her smile patiently as an older customer complained about their order being wrong, even though it was exactly what they'd requested. The barista didn't argue. Just remade it, smiled again, maintained grace under unearned criticism. How many times a day did she do that? How exhausting must it be? For the first time, Vivienne began to see beyond her own consequences. This wasn't about her redemption arc. This was about the countless people who navigated spaces that constantly questioned their right to exist there. She pulled out her phone, opened her email, started typing, not to Marcus but to the organizations he'd listed in the article, volunteering, not for publicity or forgiveness, but to listen, learn, do the work without expecting applause. Her message was simple. I'm the hostess from the Azure Pearl incident. I have no excuses for my behavior, but I'm ready to listen if anyone is willing to teach. I'll work for free. I'll start at the bottom. I just want to understand what I couldn't see before. She hit send on 3 separate emails, expected nothing, but it felt like the first honest thing she'd done in weeks. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. Unknown number, she answered cautiously. Vivienne Rousseau, a woman's voice warm but guarded. Yes? This is Dr. Sarah Johnson. I run one of the bias training programs Marcus Hale just funded. I got your email. A pause. I'm not offering you forgiveness, but I am offering you education. If you're serious about learning, we start next Monday, 6 a.m. And Vivienne, it's going to be uncomfortable. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't about making you feel better. This is about making you better, period. Vivienne took a breath. I'm ready. We'll see. The line went dead. Vivienne sat back, coffee still cold, newspaper still open to Marcus's article. This wasn't redemption. It wasn't even the beginning of redemption. But it was something. A tiny crack in the wall she'd built around her own ignorance. She looked at the barista again, now dealing with another difficult customer with the same patient grace. Vivienne stood, left a generous tip, and walked out into Monaco's morning light. She had no job, no reputation, no clear future. But for the first time since that terrible moment on the yacht, she had a direction that wasn't about saving herself. 6 weeks later, Marcus Hale stood in a Geneva conference hall, addressing 300 hospitality executives at the Global Luxury Service Summit. He hadn't planned to speak publicly about the Azure Pearl incident, but the organizers had asked specifically. The industry needed to hear this from him. The room was silent. Every seat filled, standing room only in the back. "I'm going to tell you about a yacht," Marcus began, his voice calm but carrying weight, "and about assumptions we make in 3 seconds. He described the day, the preview event, the grey hoodie, the expulsion. He spoke without anger, just facts laid bare. When he mentioned Vivian's words, certain caliber of clientele, people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Here's what I want you to understand," Marcus continued. "This wasn't about one woman's prejudice. It was about an entire industry built on gatekeeping, on deciding who looks wealthy enough, who seems refined enough, who fits the aesthetic." He clicked to the next slide. Photos of himself, in hoodies at board meetings, sneakers at galas, casual clothes at every major event. "I dress this way by choice, because wealth shouldn't require a costume. But the real question is, why does your industry assume it should?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some nodding, others looking defensive. "After the Azure Pearl incident, I had 3 options." Marcus counted on his fingers. 1, sue them into bankruptcy. 2, let it go and move on. 3, use my privilege to change the system. He clicked again. The $5 million training program appeared on screen. "I chose 3. Because the Vivians of the world aren't the problem. They're the symptom. We need to heal the disease." A hand shot up. Middle-aged white man in a tailored suit. Marcus nodded. "Mr. Hale, with respect, hospitality is about maintaining standards. How do we balance inclusion with excellence?" The room held its breath. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're asking the wrong question. You're assuming inclusion compromises excellence. But excellence that excludes isn't excellence, it's just expensive discrimination." The man sat down, face reddening. Another hand. "A young black woman in the 3rd row. What happened to the hostess?" "Vivian?" Marcus paused. "She was terminated, as she should have been. But that's not where the story ends." He clicked to a new slide. Photo of Vivian, standing in front of a classroom, listening to a speaker. She enrolled in the training program. Voluntarily, no cameras, no press. Just showed up and did the work. The room stirred with surprise. "I'm not telling you this so you'll forgive her," Marcus said firmly. "I'm telling you because real change requires both accountability and education. She faced consequences. Now she's facing herself. That's the bare minimum." He clicked to the final slide. Bold text. "The future of luxury is inclusive or it's nothing." "Every person in this room has power," Marcus said, his voice rising with passion. "Power to hire, to train, to set standards. You can keep building walls based on appearance, or you can build bridges based on service and respect. The choice is yours. But understand, the world is changing with or without you." The applause started slowly, then built to a crescendo. People stood. Not everyone. Some remained seated, arms crossed, unconvinced. But enough. Enough to matter. After the speech, Marcus was surrounded by executives wanting to implement similar programs. He answered questions patiently, though exhaustion pulled at his shoulders. As the crowd thinned, a woman approached hesitantly. "Dr. Sarah Johnson, director of his training program." "She's making progress," Dr. Johnson said quietly. "Vivian?" "Real progress. Still has far to go, but she's listening." "Actually listening." Marcus nodded. "Good. That's her work to do, not mine. She asked if she could write you a letter. Not for forgiveness, just to share what she's learning." "I told her I'd ask you." Marcus considered this. "No letter. But if she completes the full program, graduates with certification, and spends a year working in community-facing hospitality without incident, Tell her I'll read whatever she wants to share then. Dr. Johnson smiled. That's more than fair. It's not about fairness, Marcus said. It's about earning the right to be heard. 8 months after the incident, Vivienne Rousseau stood in a community center in Marseille, serving lunch to homeless families. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no designer clothes, just comfortable shoes and an apron stained from serving. This was her life now. Morning shifts at the community center, afternoon classes in the bias training program, evening work at a small family-owned restaurant where the owner knew her story and hired her anyway, saying everyone deserves a second chance to do better. The pay was minimal. Her apartment was tiny. Her savings were gone. But something had shifted inside her, something she couldn't name but could feel. Like vision returning after years of voluntary blindness. More soup, please. A young black girl, maybe 8 years old, held up her bowl hopefully. Vivienne ladled carefully, smiling. Of course, sweetheart. Would you like extra bread too? The girl nodded shyly. Vivienne added 2 rolls, watching the child's face light up with simple joy. This was what service actually meant. Not curating aesthetics for rich people. Not gatekeeping luxury. Just meeting human needs with dignity. Later that evening, she sat in Dr. Johnson's classroom, her final session before certification. The topic: accountability without redemption seeking. You cannot earn your way out of the harm you caused, Dr. Johnson said, her voice gentle but firm. Marcus Hale doesn't owe you forgiveness. The people you hurt don't owe you absolution. You do this work because it's right, not because it pays dividends in restored reputation. Vivienne nodded, taking notes. She'd heard this before, but each repetition revealed new layers. She was learning that growth wasn't linear. It was cyclical, recursive, constantly circling back to uncomfortable truths. After class, Dr. Johnson handed Vivienne her certificate. You've completed the program. I'm proud of the work you've done. Vivienne looked at the paper. Official, complete, but it didn't feel like an ending. What now? Now you keep doing the work, every day. For the rest of your life, Dr. Johnson smiled. That's what real change looks like. Not a destination. A practice. Vivienne walked home through Marseille's evening streets, certificate in her bag, head full of thoughts. She passed luxury shops with their pristine windows, saw well-dressed people entering exclusive restaurants. Once that had been her world. Now it felt distant, like watching a film of someone else's life. Her phone buzzed. Email from Dr. Johnson. Marcus Hale agreed to read your letter now if you choose to write one. No pressure. No expectations. Just an opening. Vivienne stopped walking, stood on the sidewalk as people flowed around her. She could write. Pour out everything she'd learned. Apologize with better words. Educated words, transformed words. Or she could keep doing the work quietly. Keep serving. Keep learning. Let her actions speak louder than any letter ever could. She pocketed her phone. Kept walking. Maybe someday she'd write that letter. Maybe not. What mattered was the work itself, not the recognition for doing it. 3 years later, Marcus Hale stood on a different yacht, one he'd purchased specifically for corporate retreats, focused on inclusion and accessibility. The Hale Tech team surrounded him, 200 employees from every background, celebrating their company's latest breakthrough in medical AI. He wore his usual grey hoodie. Nobody questioned it. Nobody assumed. They knew who he was because of what he'd built, not how he dressed. As sunset painted the Mediterranean gold, Marcus thought about that day at the Azure Pearl. The humiliation. The anger. The choice he'd made to transform pain into progress. His bias training programs now operated in 40 countries. Thousands of hospitality workers had completed certification. The industry was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. He didn't think about Vivienne often. She was a footnote in a larger story, but occasionally he wondered if the work she'd started had continued, if she'd stayed committed or drifted back to old patterns. Dr. Johnson had mentioned once, that Vivienne was managing a community-focused hospitality program in Marseille. Teaching service with dignity, living quietly, working without spotlight. Good, Marcus thought. That's how change happens, not through grand gestures, but through daily choices to be better than yesterday. His CFO, Diane, appeared beside him with champagne. To 3 years of the most inclusive corporate culture in tech, Marcus raised his glass. To everyone who showed up as themselves, they drank. The yacht rocked gently, and Marcus understood something profound. The Azure Pearl incident hadn't broken him, because he'd never built his worth on other people's approval. He'd built it on purpose, service, and the refusal to shrink himself for comfort. That was the real luxury, not yachts or champagne or designer clothes. The real luxury was existing fully, authentically, without apology. Somewhere in Marseille, Vivienne Rousseau served soup to families who needed it. She'd never get her old life back, never erase her mistake. But she'd learned something equally valuable, that grace isn't given, it's practiced. That redemption isn't a destination, it's a discipline. 2 people transformed by one terrible moment, one by refusing to let prejudice diminish him, one by finally letting consequences teach her. The yacht sailed into golden hour, carrying stories of transformation in its wake, and the Mediterranean, ancient and knowing, reflected everything back, the beauty and the ugliness, the harm and the healing, the endings that were really beginnings in disguise, because that's how justice works sometimes. Not with thunder, but with the quiet insistence of changed hearts doing better work. One choice at a time, one day at a time, until excellence and inclusion were finally beautifully the same thing.